thank you so much for being here. If you're a second-time guest, we want to thank you. And if you've been here every Sunday, we want to thank you too. So basically, everybody's thanked. Okay, so I covered the whole bases, and that's good so nobody gets offended and mad at me for anything else other than my crazy, insane, ugly fish shirt. Okay, so besides that, everything else is good. We are in a second week of a series called Love Like Jesus. And when I started thinking through this whole thing and how it was going to work, it really just kind of started with getting back to the basics of what Christ following is. As you look around our country, obviously we're in a lot of need for a lot of things, and wisdom and generosity and all those things are part of it. And what I get upset about, or it kind of bothers me, is when I see Christ followers on social media not acting like Christ followers. And so I thought, what if we could just get back to the basics? Like, just what does it mean to just follow Christ recklessly? Like, what would it mean if we just could kind of tear it down? And so that's kind of where this series started, and that's how it worked. And then last week, it was supposed to be week 2, but God interrupted the service, which was great. We had a morning just of prayer, and I couldn't tell you, if you were here last week, you probably got how nervous I was and how anxious I was and how completely out of my comfort zone that was for me. But I did it. And I can't thank you enough for all the emails, the texts, the Facebook messages, all the different people that met me in the foyer and said how great it was, and that's exactly what they needed. So, you know, it's nice to know that when it works that it's happening. But this week what I want to do is I want to kind of talk through what it means to serve. And I want to start by telling you or reading to you a story. A guy went to a doctor and they referred him to specialists, and they ran all sort of tests. After running all these tests, they came up with the diagnosis, and it was rather serious. They actually asked to talk to his wife alone first. The lead doctor said to the guy's wife, "Well, we're very sad to tell you, but your husband has a very rare disease, and if left untreated, he will die. He's going to die very quickly and very painfully." The doctor said, "There's good news that with chemo and a lot of help from you, we actually believe that he can be healed. The challenge is, though, he will need a very, very strict diet, and that means you will have to cook for him every single meal, 3 meals a day. He's also got to have an environment that's very sterile, so it's got to be kept completely clean, and that means you'll have to be available to him nonstop. It'll take more from you than you could ever imagine. But if you'll cook for him and clean for him and be there to serve him and do this over an extended period of time, your husband will live." She walked out, and the husband, obviously nervous, said, "Well, what did the doctor say?" The lady said to her, and I'm not doing that. Kind of harsh, right? Like, as husbands, as wives, we would say that would never happen. And it's kind of a funny story. But listen, there's times that we've all said, "I'm not doing that." I would love to sit here and say, in all honesty, that every time God has told me to do something, I did it. But there have been times where I said, "I'm not doing that." Like, God, I'm not doing that. Like, it's uncomfortable. That's why last week I think last week set me up for this. But there have been times early in my ministry where God would say, "Okay, you need to go over there and pray for that guy." I'm like, "I'm not doing it. Like, I don't like that guy. Like, I don't care if he has a bad life. I don't care. And God's like, "No, you're going to go pray. That's the wrong." No, I'm not doing it. Me and Brenda used to work a lot of youth camps. And youth camp, there's like 600 teenagers. And I was the recreation director, so I organized all the sports for 600 kids. It was crazy. And we had all these different, I had a whole staff of like 15, 20 people. And we organized all this. Well, there was this one little camper kid, and he was a punk. He was like a 15-year-old, arrogant, thought he knew everything, punk. Okay, now I had just recently been saved in the last, probably at this time, 4 or 5 years. So I wasn't all the way saved yet. I might have had a little world still in me, and I needed a little more Jesus. But so this kid, and we're doing this basketball game or something, and he had his hat on backwards or sideways or something, and Brenda was running one of the games, and she said, "Do something," and he said something like, "You can shut up," or something like that. I was like, "What?" "Oh, I'm about to lay hands on somebody like the Bible told me to lay hands. I'm about to lay the right hand of fellowship up in this kid's junk." And I'm thinking he's 15 and I'm 20 whatever, and I'm mad. Like I'm like, "That's it. You're done for the week. You don't have to do nothing." And so we got heated, and he tried to mouth off, and I was like, "You can go home. I'll call your parents, and they can drive down here to Tampa and get you. Like, I don't get no time for you." And I was mad. Fast forward to 2 days later. Every day at youth camp, you would go to a service. We did the whole thing. One year, we even had pyrotechnics. It was awesome. We just did everything for that. He says, "Listen, if you're a pastor in here, I need you to come forward because there's kids that need prayer, and I need you to lay hands, and we need to pray for these kids." I'm like, "Oh, I'm in it. I'm going to pray for these teenagers," right? And so I'm walking up, and he says, "Just the first person that you see, that's who I want you to pray for." And I see this kid, and I'm like, "Okay, that's the kid I'm supposed to pray for." And I go up, and when he turns around, it's that punk. And I was like, "Nope, I saw you first. Like I'm not praying. Like, I don't like you. I'm not serving him." But I did. I prayed for him as best I could. But there's those moments Well, we tell God, I ain't doing that. For whatever reason. Maybe it's maybe if you've been to the churches where this always drove me nuts, okay? Touch your neighbor and say, I ain't doing that. Exactly. No one wants to touch their neighbor. Like, I don't know that person. Do they bathe? Do they shower? I don't want to touch them. It feels awkward. Maybe you're sitting next to your girlfriend. You're like, okay, I'll touch her. You know, whatever. But when churches would do that to me, I'll be like, I'm not doing that. Or the churches would say it with me. I ain't doing that. Exactly. Everybody's like, I ain't doing that. Like, I ain't doing that. Like, I don't care what he says. When I'm doing it, it feels awkward. It's weird. What if somebody actually hears me have a voice? We know you all talk. Like, we know that. Why do pastors do that? To make sure you're not not asleep. So if we feel like you're falling asleep, we just tell you to do something. Like, make you wake up, get up and do jumping jacks. I don't know. But the whole thing is, you get to these moments in your life where you're like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's beneath me. I'm not there. And that's one of the things that we always have to fight as adults, is that God said we're to serve others sometimes because humanity gets involved. Our feelings get involved. Our personal desires get involved. The last sermon we talked about in this whole thing, it was to love like Jesus was to forgive. And I know how hard that is. And I talked about some of the hard times I had, and I've got some emails from some of you that said, thank you, I'm still having a hard time, but I'm working through the process. Last week, there was this prayer time, and people were talking about how they were thinking about the previous week where it was forgiveness, and they were just having such a hard time. Today we're going to talk about serving, and then next week we're going to talk about breaking bread and being in community, what that looks like. Because see, if we can live out a life of forgiveness, and we can live out a life of serving the world, and we can live out a life of doing life in community and being together, we will represent the basics and the essentials to what being a Christ follower is. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what the whole process of this is. Today we're going to take a look at Jesus in the image of washing feet. Some of y'all just got grossed out because you're like, washing feet. But we're going to see it from a different perspective. And so what I want to do is kind of read the scripture and kind of contextualize what he's really trying to do. Because a lot of times we just see this picture of Jesus like, y'all got dirty feet, so I'm going to wash them. That's not what it was about. It was never about their dirty feet to that degree. It was much more than that. We're going to be in John chapter 13 this morning, starting in verse 1. I'm just going to read them. They're just follow along. You can just listen this morning. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave the world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples till the very end. You need to picture this in your brain. And he knows that his entire 33 years or approximately years on earth is going to culminate tomorrow. It's all serving and teaching and doing and hopefully modeling for my disciples and for people. What it's all about tomorrow will be the big one. And he says, I'm loving them till the end. Now think about this as I read this next scripture. He's loving them till the end. Verse 2, it was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. He's loving him until the end. The guy that is going to eventually betray him, and he knows it. And he loves him to the end. See, this is a Jesus moment. This ain't a human moment. Even though he's fully human, he had the ability to say, I'm going to love you regardless of what you're doing to me. I'm not there. I don't know that many of us, we knew that you're going to be the cause of my death, and I'm going to have to love you till the end. That's hard for us. But that's where Jesus is. Now, think about this as he's going into this final night. This is his week. On Monday, he cleansed the temple. So basically on Monday, he went in. It's when he went into where they were selling stuff in the temple. Now, people sometimes say, see, that you shouldn't sell anything in church. That's not what the problem was. The problem was that they were selling things to sacrifice. So like if you needed a dove or you needed a pigeon or you needed whatever, they were raping people financially. They would charge them 20 times the cost to make a whole lot of money. So they were basically profiting off the person's ability or inability to forgive themselves of sin. So he was upset about it. He wasn't upset they were selling it. He was upset that they were just taking advantage of all these people. So on Monday, he goes in, he starts throwing over tables, which is why, in my mind, I don't think that we get a good representation of Jesus when we see him all like that, like little bitty arms and scrawny. Those tables were stone. They were not the little white tables that we buy at Sam's. So to go in and flip one over, Jesus might have been jacked. Like he might have been a big dude. I don't know, but those things are heavy, or he just used Jesus power or something. I don't know. But for whatever reason, he got mad enough to throw concrete tables over. On Tuesday, he has a massive fight with religious leaders, like a big-time brawl, and basically just calls them all out. Calls them everything you could think of that was not a obscenity. On Wednesday, we have no record really in the scripture of what happened and here we are on Thursday night. He's loving them till the end on Thursday night. he knows that tomorrow it's all over. It's his big one more night, his final farewell speech. He's thought he has taught them well and done all this stuff, and here it comes to this final night where he's going to give them their charge. And in the middle of this amazing night, we're going to have community, we're going to break bread, we're going to have one last dinner together before I shed my life for you, and we're going to have this moment. And in the middle of that, all the disciples start acting like little 2-year-olds, and a fight breaks out amongst them, a disagreement, an argument. It started with someone says, he's going to be gone tomorrow. Wonder who's going to be the greatest among us. I mean, I must be the greatest, right? And one disciple says, no, he calls me the one he loves. So obviously, I'm the greatest. You can imagine Peter walking in. Peter like, oh, y'all, I walked on the water while y'all kept y'all scared butts in the boat. So I must be the greatest. Because, but you sank. Like, you looked at the waves, and then all of a sudden you went down. And then Bartholomew would stand up and say, well, what about me? I think I'm the greatest. And they're like, we're never going to remember you. Like, you didn't do anything important. And so they start arguing about who's going to be the greatest. And I imagine Jesus sitting there going, what? I've told you the answer to this. In his mind, he knows that he's told them, because he said, listen, I've already told you the greatest is the one who will be your servant. Jesus said, I did not come to be served by others. I came to serve you, to lay down my life as a ransom. He looks around the room, knowing he's told them the one that wants to be the greatest has got to become the least. The one that wants to be the best, you got to bring yourself down. He said, I've told you, and here you are arguing. And he looked around. He saw proud hearts and dirty feet. That's what he saw. A bunch of prideful people with some dirty feet. And I think it was in that moment that Jesus said, I'm about to flip the script in this sucker. I'm about to change everything. I'm going to blow their minds. Verse 4 and 5. Remember, they're arguing. I'm the greatest. No, I am. No, I'm going to be the best. I'll be the best. I'm going to be. And he just gets up. Verse 4 and 5. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that he had around them. Why did he wash their feet? If you lived in that time, it was a common courtesy that when someone came to your home, that the first thing you would do is you would give them a kiss on the cheek. That was a normal kind of greeting. And after that, walked around in sandals in the dusty dirt, and they would be dirty. Now, the person that would say, would you like your feet washed, had no intention of ever washing your feet. That was not it. What they are saying is, I'm so important, I have someone in my home that will come here right now and wash your dirty feet. I'm not going to touch them, but I'm so important. Look at me. I'm so big. I have such a nice place that I have someone else that will come and do it. In today's world, it'd be kind of like, let's say you lived in you're like one of the crazy people that love cold weather states, okay? If you're like that, I'm sorry. Like you go like in Kentucky, let's say, because I'm from Kentucky, so I can make fun of Kentucky people. And so in the winter, you wear a coat, okay? Those of you Floridians, it's like a big jacket, okay? It's really warm, okay, because you're freezing outside. And so when you would go to someone's, like if you were to come to my home, I would say, can I take your coat? If the person said yes, I'd be like, coat person, take the coat. I'm not touching your coat. I'm too good to touch your coat. Coat person, take the coat. That's kind of like what it would be. So he's saying, the person in the home, would you like your feet washed? You would? Okay, come here and wash his feet. And they would get down and they would wash your feet. Now, one of the things that would do is, this doesn't work in today's culture, okay? I love you guys, okay? You ask me, Ben, would you like to come over for dinner? I might say, absolutely. That would be great. I'd love to come over for dinner. If I walk in your house and you're like, hey, would you like a pedicure? I'll be happy to give you a pedicure. I'm going to say, no, you're a weirdo, and I'm leaving probably, okay? Just because that would freak me out, okay? That's just not the way. So it doesn't work like that anymore. But in this culture, it was really, really important. Now think about it. Here's these arguments going on. I'm going to be the greatest. No, I'm going to be. And Jesus looks up. He just gets up. And he goes over and takes off his robe. The King of Kings, the Savior, the Redeemer, takes off his robe, which is the sign of an important man, takes it off and puts a towel around his waist. The only people that wore towels around their waist were servants. That was a sign of a servant. You walked into someone's home and you were like, oh, towel. Okay, those are the servants. They got the towels on their waist. So they're arguing. He puts the towel on and he goes to the first disciple and he starts washing his feet. Imagine the chaos that must have happened if you were that first disciple. You're arguing, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, and your feet get wet, and you look down, and there's Jesus washing your feet. Whoa, 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 no, 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 no. What are you doing? Get that apron off. You're Jesus. Get up. Like, what are you doing? And Jesus says, I think he says, I see a need. The need is you have proud hearts. And I'm going to show you what it's like to be the greatest. I'm going to bend down, and I'm going to serve you. Now, you have to understand, and I don't know that I have the vocabulary to get you to understand, this is the lowest job you can have. This is like the lowest of lows. This is kind of like Queen Elizabeth come into your house and saying, "Can I scrub your toilets?" Like it's like this, the biggest person doing the absolute most disgusting, lowliest job. Like the worst servants got this job, and here he is bending down doing this. The Alpha, the Omega, the first, the last, the King, the Lord, the Savior, the Redeemer. And they're arguing about who's the greatest, and here he is washing feet. He didn't do, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. He says, no, I am going to do it. I got this. I'm going to teach them what it's like. And so he begins to show what the servant was about. Here's something that he's showing us. In that moment, he had an assignment. The assignment was to humble them and show them what real servants were about. What if we lived our life through that filter? Like, what if we woke up in the morning and say, God, what's my assignment today, God? Give me eyes to see things that maybe I wouldn't have seen before. Give me ears to hear things that maybe I wouldn't have heard any other time. God, let me have a life that slows down enough to see where my assignment is. One of the books that I think every Christian in America read in the early 2000s was The Purpose-Driven Life. If you guys have ever read that, I don't know. It was like the national bestseller for a decade or something. I mean, it was just huge. And the guy that wrote that, Rick Warren, pastors a gigantic church in California called Saddleback. And it's a huge church. Rick Warren is an amazing, amazing pastor and leader. He lives a life of example. He does something that he lives out called reverse tithing. What that means is he tithes 90% and lives off 10 and does not take a salary from the church. And his church runs about 10,000 people. But he writes books, and that's how he makes his money. But whatever he makes, he gives 90 to the church and 10% to his own self. Now that's not a biblical precedent. That's just what he wants to do. So he pastors this church, and he's got 50 or 60 staff members, staff pastors. When he hires them, okay, now they get hired on it to do okay. And so he hires, it doesn't matter whether he's hiring an executive pastor for $70,000 or a student pastor for $50,000. It doesn't matter which level he is. He tells them, okay, now listen, I'm going to hire you. You've got the job. But for the first 90 days you are on the job, you are a janitor. And for the first 90 days that you work there as a pastor, you do nothing but clean toilets, clean floors, clean windows for 3 months. That's all you do. And he said, because if the person isn't willing to clean, they're not able to lead. And his thing is, if you're not willing to lower yourself down, then you can't do the big things. And so all of a sudden, now these pastors are seeing things from different places. What if we lived in our filter to think we're not that good, we can do anything? Can we go serve the homeless? I don't know. They're kind of dirty, and they're all just drunks, right? Aren't every alcoholic homeless? And I mean, I don't know that I can do that. Can I go to like a nice, clean orphanage and like hold babies like that? I can do that. Well, what can you go to one where they're all addicted to crack? No, that's too heartbreaking for me. I can't do that. I can't. But what if we lived through that filter of like, no, we're gonna do anything? What if we said, there's a lady down the street and she's moving. I'm going to help her move. I don't know her, but I'm going to go offer to help her move. Maybe she's a single mom and she just needs some help. Or you're at church and you say, hey, there's a garbage can that's full. I'm going to take that garbage can out because it needs to be done, and I can carry a garbage can. Maybe it's something else. You say, they need help in the baby room. Man, I can wipe a butt. So I'm going to be the best butt wiper in the baby room. So I'm going to go volunteer to be a baby butt wiper. And that's what you're going to do. And you maybe you've got kids and you know how to do it. That's not, something that everybody's going to do, but maybe that's your world. Or you're going to say, you know what? I can click buttons. I can work on the media team. Or maybe say, I got a hidden talent. I can play the bass. I can play guitar. I can play the keyboard. We'd love to have Pastor Ben off that keyboard because we need somebody that can actually play the right notes. And so I'm going to help him out. I can make coffee. I'm going to show up in the morning and I'm going to help make coffee. One of the stories that in the last couple of months I've been really, really proud of is, as a staff, we've been talking about modeling and how we deal with our children, how do we help, and how do we show them what it's like, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But like this morning, all of the first impressions, the whole cafe, the coffee, the donuts, all that stuff that was out there, it's done by a teenager. Teenager, not an adult, a teenager. Why did the teenager want to do it? Because he's seen his dad do it every Sunday. And Dad had to work today. And a month ago, Dad had to work. And he says, you know what, I can do it. A teenager. We have adults that can help. We have adults that can do things. What's your assignment? Now, and I'm talking about the church, but we could be something even bigger than that. But here's the thing about serving that's the most important. Right attitude leads to right actions. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Now, here's the thing. When you are truly serving, it's never going to be about recognition. It's never going to be about who finds out and who knows. It's never going to be about that, okay? If you say, you know what? I'm going to take that trash can out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the trash can on the table. Hashtag honored to serve. Instagram it and Twitter it. And I'm humble servant hashtag. You know what a humble servant does? They don't put it on social media. They go, I'm going to grab this and take it out. But I see this all the time. And unfortunately, the people I see it most with are pastors. And I'm like, no, you don't do that. Community, and you're trying to bring awareness to a community issue, you need to make sure that people are getting recognized. But when you start serving out of the right motivation of your heart, here's the thing. When you begin to serve, God gets glorified. And the same is true. If you don't serve, God does not. One of my favorite passages in the Old Testament, David's doing some things, and he did a lot of things wrong. And he messed this thing up. And the prophet from God came to him and says, let me tell you what you've done. You've given your enemies an opportunity up. And not to just mess up your life. Now, everybody that's looking at you can say, see, his God ain't that good. See, when we serve people in our community, when we serve the homeless, when we serve our neighbor, when we serve our spouse or our kids, then people find out, they go, man, that guy kind of walks what he talks. He kind of really does it. One of the things that I enjoy doing is I work at a restaurant a couple days a week, and I enjoy that business. It's fun to me. It's only a couple days a week, but I really truly enjoy helping to manage and run that place, and it's fun to me. But they all know what I really do for a living, and it's funny how their behavior changes when I'm around. So like sometimes you'll hear them like, you know, F-bomb, 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 F-bomb. I'll walk in and they'll be like, and like everything changes, and they're trying real hard to not do it in front of me. And I'll say, guys, like, stop. If you can do it when I'm around, do it when I'm not around. Yeah, but that's because you're the preacher, you're the pastor, like you got to do that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, you can do it too. What I love even better is when I'm meeting customers, right? Because I'll be in the window and I'll be pushing food out. Give me this, here, run this. And because we have an open kitchen, sometimes there's customers. And I'm like, hey, you don't see you very often. I'm like, well, I usually work in the daytime. This is a conversation that happens about 2 weeks ago, or last week. So I'm doing all that, and they're like, we don't see you. I'm like, well, I manage usually during the day. I'm usually here at night. I'm just helping out. We're short-staffed and everything. And they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm a pastor. Now, before that, we've been having a conversation for 30 minutes about politics and sports and whatever else, right? And well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a pastor. Oh, praise you, Jesus, I'm covered in the blood and sanctified. What? Where did that come from? Like, give me that chicken parmesan. Here, what is that all about? But all of a sudden, the context changed, and they're trying to be something that they're really not in normal conversations. What if we served, and that was just the normal part of our life? I have people ask me, my two daughters on here, so I can talk about them even more today. I'm really proud of them because I make fun. I know every dad is kind of biased, but like I love the way my daughters do certain things. They bless me in so many ways, and one of the ways is they're not afraid to serve in the church, whether it's kids ministry, whether it's the way the church gets cleaned is the staff families, we rotate it. So every month, one staff family has to come in and clean the whole church. And when it's our family's turn, they never complain. Dad, what do we need to do? I'm like, well, here's the checklist. Let's go. And they'll start grabbing stuff. They'll start cleaning. They'll start doing it. And they never go, Dad, I don't want to do it. They just know this is what we do. And people ask, well, how did your kids turn out that way? And part of it I go, I don't know. I don't know. God just messed up and gave me the good ones, I guess, because I should not. but they're really good looking and young. So maybe that is my punishment, is to have good looking daughters. But it's a whole other story in and of itself. But what I tell parents is, listen, they see it modeled at home. They see me serve Brenda at home. They hear me talk about how do I serve the church more at home. They see it modeled in everyday life. If the only time we're modeling that we are serving is on Sundays, we are missing an enormous opportunity to mold our children into being productive citizens. Who are the greatest citizens right now? The ones that are actually truly serving, not for self-gain, but to make the world a better place. And so when they see me have an intimate relationship with God, some Saturday mornings or some mornings when I'm at home and they're home from school or whatever, and I'm sitting in my chair and I've got my headphones on, I'm reading my Bible with my coffee. I put headphones on because they're loud. And so I put the noise canceling ones, the big ones, like I don't hear the world at all. And then I'll be doing this and I'll see like Grayson come in and he's ready to play Xbox, and Mackenzie will be like, no. Dad's having his time. Go. We're not doing this right now. They see it. As a result, what does Cadence, my middle daughter, who's 13 years old, she gets up at 5 o'clock every morning during the school year. Every morning at 5 o'clock. No one else is up at 5 o'clock in the morning in my house. What does she do? She puts her music on. She puts her headphones on. She gets her Bible out. She makes a cup of tea, and she has her quiet time. I think that's because she's seen it modeled. What if we did that for our kids? What if we modeled like serving? Like, what if you say, you know what, I'm going to help out in guest service. I'm one Sunday a month, I'm going to come in and make the coffee. Bring your kids. Let them see it. Christmas mornings. If you want to be involved, we're going to be doing it again this year. And you can get involved. It's the most amazing thing we do for our kids. Christmas morning, we get up, and if I'm not mistaken, Christmas is on a Sunday this year, so there will be no service. I know, everybody's going to yell at me now. We get up, we have breakfast. We have blueberry muffins and bacon. That's our Christmas morning breakfast. Then we open all of our presents. Well, we read Luke chapter 2, and we open all of our presents. Then we clean up all of the wrapping paper before Brenda breaks out in hives. We clean all that up. We let them play for a little while. Then we shower and get everything cleaned up. And then we go serve. Homeless. They're everywhere. We go serve. So Christmas morning is now balanced. They got their presents. They had their blessings. They've received it. Now they go, it's time to shift gears. Let's do this. My kids are growing up knowing that that's how we work. That's how we serve. We want your kids to do the same thing. We want you to do the same thing. What if we could really just change it all? See, one of the things that makes me mad about Christians, Christ followers, we have somehow gotten into a place where consumers than contributors. I know, I'm going to make y'all real mad. There's more people that are looking to get something from the church than to be the church. When I have these conversations with people, a lot of times it's at the restaurant because I meet so many people there. And they say, man, you're a pastor? We're going to try your church, I guess, because we've gone to 15 churches and we can't find one church that meets all of our needs. So church is about meeting everything that you want and desire out of a church, correct? Well, it's got to have this, and it's got to have this, and I got to have this, and I got to have this, and I'm going, we're probably not the church for you. Because if you're that picky, you might not like us. What if we could flip that? I'd go to that church, but their children's ministry isn't very good, and therefore I don't want to go. What if it was, I'm going to this church, and the children's ministry wasn't really great? I bet I could make a difference. I bet I could do something great here. I could boost this up. But see, that's the consumer versus contributor. How do we contribute? Or I hear people sometimes will talk about other churches, and there's this one guy that told me one time that he wasn't going to go to this one church because this and this wasn't nice enough. And if they weren't bringing enough money to pay for this and this, then he wasn't going there. I'm thinking, but you make $1 million a year. Why don't you go there and financially contribute and make the church what you would like it to be, if that's what your needs are? Maybe there's other people out there you can serve. But what if we could really just flip everything around and it not be, well, they didn't sing my favorite song, so I'm not going back to that church. I don't like this because of this and this. And listen, I get it. There are certain major stylistic things that you can't get past, okay? I can no longer go to a church that's super liturgical because my brain just doesn't work. I get that. But what I'm talking about is when it's the little, tiny, bitty, little things and the person doesn't even want to contribute anything. And I'm not talking about just finances. I'm talking about their talent, their time. You miss the bigger picture. See, while we meet on Sundays, we say we're going to church, we need to be going to church on Monday in our office. What if you're a school teacher? You got a ministry field. You go to school. Pray for those kids. You don't do it out loud. Pray for those kids. Maybe you own a lawn service. You say, well, I'm just a lawn cutter. No. Every yard you're mowing, man, you're praying for that family. They don't even have to know it. Or you tell them about your faith if they ask. Well, man, I'm just a banker. I'm just an accountant. I'm just a lawyer. No, you're not just that. What if that's your assignment and that's a place you can serve? Lawyers that do pro bono work, or bankers that do financial advising to people. What if we just changed it all and said, you know what, we're going to serve in so many different areas. And here's the thing I learned about serving. If you don't remember anything else, this is the one big thing I want you to remember. When you serve, God changes lives, and yours is usually the first. You can't serve without your life changing a little bit. It never happens. Whether it was when we painted, or a couple of years ago we did a thing at the Bethel house, and Dan Magner and myself, we got there and all we did was cook breakfast for all the people. And watching them eat, thank you so much. Like, it's just bacon and egg. But to them, it was somebody cooked them a meal. That changes you. When you serve others, God changes lives, and yours is usually the first. Let me close up this morning. People are screaming in today's world that they want things to change. We're in a political kind of time, so it's this has to be changed and that has to be changed and all of these different things. But dream with me for a minute. Like, just dream. Just every church that's a legitimate, biblically orthodox church. Not the crazy ones. There's plenty of those. Leave them out, please. But all of the biblically orthodox, sound, Christ-following churches. What if we decided we were going to change things? I'm not talking about voting. I'm not talking about protesting. I'm not talking about any of that. None of that. None of the politically hip, trendy things. But what if we said, you know what? I'm going to do what Jesus did. I'm going to start serving. And what if every Christ follower served their area, their world? Maybe your husband. This week, serve your wife. Serve your kids. Watch how their world changes. What if you're an employee? You're going to go in this week and you're going to serve your boss. Not because he signs your paycheck. You're going to go above and beyond. Yeah, but he's a jerk. He's mean. He's a poop head. Well, guess what? Jesus bowed down and washed feet of people who were arguing about who was going to be the best. I'm sure he was not pleased with them. So he begins to wash. What if your wife, stay-at-home mom, you got your little circle of friends, and this would never be anybody here, of course, and they just talk about their husbands the whole time. What if you stood? Let's serve them. Husbands, serve your wives. Wives, serve your husbands. Serve your kids. What if you're an employer? What if you own the company and you went in and you served your employees? Hey guys, this week, I'm going to buy lunch on Wednesday. Lunch is on me. I appreciate you. Not what you do for me, not because you work for me. I appreciate you as a human being. I want to change your life. Here's a meal. You say, well, that's just a meal, Ben. That can't be that big a deal. Until you find out your employee isn't making his bad financial choices. Things are going bad at home, and he doesn't know where he's getting his next meal. What if you're a teenager? You want your parents to lighten up on you a little bit? Try serving them. Mom, I got the kitchen tonight. You don't have to worry about it. I know, that's like a Jesus miracle right there. Like God is in the house when the teenager goes, I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to vacuum. You do those little things, you think, but it's just doing dishes. It can't be that big a deal. That's because you don't understand how hard mom worked all week. And that mom's stressed to the max. And just 15 minutes of not having to do another thing could be the very few minutes of breath that she needs to not kill you. You're welcome. What if you served your church? What if we said, I'm tired of finding out what all the faults are. Listen, I know how many things are not where I want them to be for Bay Point Church. I'm the most critical. Like, it's bad. Like, I see every little possible thing that I got to change this, I got to change this, I got to change this, I got to change this. It's nonstop. I got to do this, I got to do this. Now to mention that, I have Brenda saying, Ben, we got to change this, we got to change this, we got to change this, we got to do this. I have Derek, Ben, we need to do this, we need to do this. I have Steve, we need to do this, we need to do this. I have Greg and Alicia, we need to do this and this. And I got all these things going. Like, I get all that. And what if I said, you know what? Then let's just do it. There's a lot on the plates of the staff. What if you could help? What if we could help you in another way? How can we serve you this week? I'm going to look for ways this week to serve Bay Point even more than I already do, because I want to go to the next level. What if you did the same thing? Ben, what do you need, man? What can I do to help? I'm fortunate because the things I'm terrible at, or the things that make me want to shove a screwdriver in my eye, I have someone willing to do that for me. But there's all kinds of things that we could be doing. When the fall hits, we better be ready. We've got life groups coming, and community groups and connect groups. We got service projects going to happen. There's a lot coming up in the fall, none of which will happen if we don't get involved. I'm going to pray for you guys this week. And I'm going to pray that you begin to ask God every morning, what's my assignment? Give me the eyes to see what you see. Give me ears to hear what's going on around me. Look, let me find ways to help others with no recognition, with nothing about anything in return, just because I want to serve. I want to do what Jesus did. I want to wash feet, figuratively. That's my prayer for you this week. And I hope God messes you up with it. I hope your eyes open up, and now when you begin to walk around, you see all the needs of people. You want to see the majority of needs? All you have to do is go on Facebook. Because see, here's the problem. A lot of what people write on Facebook is not the real problem. I can read Facebook and go, oh my Lord, Lord help them. They're so lonely. Look what they're writing. And I'll pray, or you know what I should do? Pick up the phone and go, hey man, saw your Facebook post. You sound a little bit down. You all right? What can I do? Let's go grab some coffee. Hey, I saw that you're about to kill your child again. What's going on? Maybe there's something I can do to help. But instead, sometimes we take the easy way out. My kids are driving me nuts. My husband won't do it right. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to go to the pool. We go, like. If you feel like liking it, call them. Send them a text. Send them an email. Send them a message. Get in touch with them somehow. You want to serve needs? That's the first place to start. You want to get bigger? Call the schools. The schools have plenty of needs. But what if we changed it? What if the church changed it? Not just Bay Point, all the churches. If we just flipped it and said, we're not going to worry about what the church is giving us. We're going to worry about going out and being the church and giving back. We'll change the place. That's how we change. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you.